Hello, I'm Deborah Pascali Bonaro of Orgasmic Birth to help you positively prepare for birth and parenting. And it is just such an honor today to have a dear friend, someone who just means the world to me. Sarah Jane is an actor, a filmmaker, a hypnotherapist, and coach dedicated to empowering women to reclaim their inherent power to birth ecstatically, autonomously, and gently. We were blessed to meet around our Eat, Pray, Doula workshops when you were pregnant and you were on this incredible birthing journey. So welcome and thank you for being here today to help share with people what it was like to prepare for birth and to give birth in this empowering, blissful way.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. It's such an honor to talk to you, and you have been one of our biggest inspirations, and since the birth of my daughter 8 years ago, reading your book, Orgasmic Birth, just shifted so much for me in terms of awakening this idea that mindset and language and the way we mentally prepare it's really not tapped into enough for women, and once we can access different modalities of how we approach birth and how we think about birth, things can shift so drastically. And I think for me, I remember arriving in Bali and I was thinking, how could I have a home birth in Australia like I'd planned to have in Germany? And I was 39, sort of typically from the medical system classified as a geriatric mother. And
I hate that term.
I know it's such a horrible term. And because I have, a tendency to have massive babies and to look like I'm carrying twins, I just came from Australia with a lot of fear mongering, if I dare say it to that extreme, in my head, and sort of arrived in Bali, and it was this completely different holding from you, of course, from Ibu Robin, from Mala, these incredibly wise women and birth keepers, that it was just a given. Of course, I'm going to have a natural, ecstatic, gentle birth. And that kind of mindset, to be surrounded by that confidence, that has such an incredibly profound impact on a woman's well-being and on her mental health and on her confidence. That for me, I distinctly remember arriving and just being completely held and supported, that sacred feminine energy. And then to do the doula course and just to be so informed with all of that wisdom before the birth, it was such a sacred, beautiful experience to prepare in that way and to feel so held by so many incredible women.
Thank you. And as you're talking, and yes, we share that language is so powerful. I'm coming back to Robin and Ibu Robin Lim, an amazing midwife. She always writes, and she had like a little board there, and she said, we want prenatal care, not scare. And so what were some of the things that you did? What are some tips that can guide them as they prepare for that gentle birth?
Yeah, I mean, I really took a lot of inspiration at the beginning. I was sort of at a very turbulent point in my relationship, and I remember thinking, right, okay, I'm going to make this like a mission or like an adventure to use the tools that I've learned through coaching and through hypnotherapy and so forth, but also to really figure out how can we approach birth and how can I really confront the waves and the intensity of that experience with preparedness. But I guess I had such a passion to experience completely the birth, to be completely present, and we should be focusing on that preparation. And so it became a joy, because by the time the day of birth came, I was so excited just to ride the waves and just to see to what extent I was able to bypass my mind and be at one with source. It felt like all the preparation and those tools enabled me to just be present when the moment came. And I'm sort of really grateful that I did. It sort of blew me away that that kind of preparation could lead to such a gentle, ecstatic birth experience. I would say to women, you know, of course, preparation is everything, but at the same time, when we come into the birth itself, we have to just let all that go and trust that we are embodied and that our body will know exactly what to do.
So beautiful, and so many great nuggets in there. Thank you so much for that. And now take us to your birth. How did labor start, and what was those hours? What were they for you?
Yeah, so it was such a gentle labor. I mean, I remember, you know, these really soft, gentle waves that actually began about a week before the actual birth date. The night before, I remember Marla said, you know, come on, we'll go up to Bumi Sehat and just get them to have a little look. And I was already 3 centimeters dilated. To already be 3, it was like, wow. So this has been a slow, gradual process over a week. And so I slept that night, which was sort of perfect because I woke up and I didn't realize that the waves were sort of already coming about 3 or 4 minutes apart. And I hadn't even packed a bag. So in the end, we made the decision to go to Bumi Sehat, which I was so thrilled about anyway. And it was literally, you know, a 200-meter walk up the road. So, and we had our beautiful doula Gabby who'd arrived to start filming. And I just remember I would walk a few meters and I'd have to sit down next to some statue of Ganesha because it would be another wave coming. And I was like, okay, so this is, it's happening. We got to Bumi Sehat and it was just so special, the sacred space, the openness. And at that point, we hadn't been able to contact Marla. It's funny. So it was really just Tanya and myself and Jean-Claude and Aurelia, my daughter, who was an incredible doula, I have to say, you know, stroking my back. And yeah, I'm just so grateful that she was present. She was so well prepared. I probably wasn't as prepared for the velocity, I guess. You know, all of a sudden, I remember sort of lying over the ball, and then Tanya said, how about we move into the bathroom, you know, and get the water on you, and you know, that instinct to sort of sit. Quite quickly after moving to the bathroom, Tanya said, Sarah, he's coming, and reached down, and his head was already there. And this is probably about an hour after having arrived at Bumi Sehat. And at that very moment, Marla arrived and was massaging my feet, and beautiful friend Sam was meditating and chanting in the corner. And then Marla suggested that we move out so that I could just be on the floor and be on my hands and knees. And I think the most surprising thing for me, because Remy was born eventually on Caul, so that there's been no flow of water yet. So, but he was coming. And of course, in the beautiful ritual at Bumi Sehat is that one of the midwives comes in and sings this beautiful prayer at the moment of crowning. And so without really knowing how close I was, I remember just seeing and hearing that beautiful song, that prayer. And it was just, I just remember this very peaceful, sort of serene, as if time sort of had stood still. And I think between his head coming out and his body coming out, what's so beautiful is you see the veil, the membrane over his little face, and the most sort of profound part of the experience was really being in contact with the divine. And I can't really explain that in any other way, but time does stand still. And I think that's why I feel so passionate about this work, because I wish that for every woman to experience birth as the divinity that it is.
Beautiful. I mean, I could just feel, right, the power and the divinity. And to know that Remy was born in that Caul, for people that don't know that, it's spelled Caul, or the veil. It's being born within the waters, right, in the bag. Now, did you open the bag, or did it eventually open on its own? How did that last?
That's a really good question. I think either Marla did it or one of the midwives from Bumi Sehat. It all happened very, very quickly. And I obviously didn't see, because I was on my hands and knees, and then Jean-Claude sort of caught Remy. And then, obviously, it's such a beautiful thing to happen, I guess, because of the rarity. They say it's 1 in 80,000 births or something. But for me, it was more this following through, which was sort of culminated with the full Lotus birth. But him being born on Caul, to me, was testament of the gentle nature of the birth. It was sort of like it couldn't have been more gentle and more natural and more calm. And so I feel very, very blessed that was the experience.
So take us through the next, minutes and hours after Remy was born.
We got up onto the bed, and then I birthed the placenta. And I guess I really want to emphasize that Robin Lim's book, The Placenta, The Forgotten Chakra, for me it's like a must read, as with your book. For me, it's full of the most sacred wisdom. And as soon as I read that book, which was quite early on in the pregnancy, I knew that I wanted to have that experience. And to this day, having a Lotus birth is the proudest I've ever felt about any decision I've ever made. And I almost feel like if there was to be a focus in my work, it's to say to women, if this is the way that we can birth a connected child that has no trauma, that is, it irons out the possibility that cutting that cord inflicts trauma, then why can't we do that? How can we support women? I'm convinced that the baby being left attached is still nourished by the organ. And again, there's no science to sort of prove that this is so, and yet that connection to their sort of twin, if you like, enables the mother to recover more fully. Because actually Remy did not cry for 3 weeks. He did not whimper. He didn't cry for 3 weeks. And I remember my mother being quite panicked by that. She said, Sarah Jane, should you go and should you have him checked? Is there something wrong? And I remember Eva Robin coming round, and she said, there's nothing wrong. It's called a gentle birth, But yes, the looking after the placenta for me was such a gift, to sort of watch this incredible organ, this tree of life. And the most incredible part of it is that the cord fell off after 3 days. It wasn't, for me, it was absolutely no inconvenience. I think a lot of women might think, oh gosh, there's all these things you've got to work out and you just want to sort of get rid of it. But I think on the contrary, if a woman has that time to just recover, because the baby is still attached to this miraculous organ, then there's huge benefit in that. And to see the shriveling of the umbilical cord, for me, was like the final process. It was sort of like the closure. To see nature like that up close was magical.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sarah Jane. It's so special. And many people that are listening may have never heard about Lotus birth. And I agree with you, such an opportunity to bring a much deeper connection to yourself, to your baby, in this case, to Remy. Your words really brought all of that so deeply into us. So, having had two births, and you alluded to, your first being different from your second, and many people listening that are preparing for their birth right now, what would be 3 tips that you would give them that you've learned in your experience that you would encourage someone who's preparing for birth today?
Well, I mean, the greatest tips I think from you and Ibu Robin is really understanding oxytocin and really becoming informed about the ideal conditions that we need. I think dancing is was a massive part of that for me as well, towards the end, to really come in contact with my body and really sort of connect with the joy and the bliss and the sensuality of birth, because it is a sensual, potentially orgasmic experience. And so, yeah, dancing and finding the joy and the bliss and the laughter. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I have to ask you this. So, in hearing your whole story, do you feel it was an orgasmic birth?
I really
Yeah.
do. I really do. And I feel it's such a sensitive topic in many ways, because, it's like, well, what is orgasmic and what is ecstatic? But in terms of a experience that for me was probably the closest I've ever come to God or the Divine Mother or the Creator, whatever you want to call Source, for me, that's what an orgasm when making love is. It's that it's a transcendental experience. And so, yes, absolutely.
And thank you so, so much. So you demonstrated that so beautifully. Again, how can people even find you on social? Where's the way to find you?
Yes, so we're called Mandalia, the inspiration from that comes from the word mandala. So we're on Instagram and we have a Facebook page, and the website is www.mandalia.org. And you are part of it, you're one of our experts, and it's such an honor to be sharing this wisdom. And I think one of the biggest inspirations that came from reading books like yours and like Ibu Robbins and Gurmukh's and Ina May Gaskin's is, how can we shift this ancient, profound wisdom? This is potentially the most sacred, profound wisdom that exists on earth, and we must respect it and acknowledge it. So I'm very excited and very honored. And again, it feels like a birth. We're just bringing something through that's been inspired by women like yourself that have been doing this for much, much longer than we have. So yeah, it's been a real joy to create, and we're so excited to be able to share it with women and mothers.
Ring the bell and subscribe for more orgasmic birth content so you can positively prepare for birth and parenting. And follow us on Instagram at Orgasmic Birth. And if you'd like some extra surprises, go to orgasmicbirth.com.